We're back, and today, of course, as always, we're talking about Wrexham Football Club. Today, I'm bringing you a very interesting video, and with the transfer window fastly approaching the opening date at the start of June, Phil Parkinson, the manager, has got a lot of tough decisions to make going into this transfer window as to who stays at the club for the upcoming championship campaign and who will be let go to free up space, of course, as we only have a 25-man squad allowed for the upcoming championship campaign. So it's inevitable that a few players who are under contract are going to leave the club, and today I'm going to be bringing you some names that I think will leave. So before we get going in today's video, if you're looking for all the best Wrexham AFC content on YouTube, this is the place to be. Make sure to get down there and click the red subscribe button. We're on the road to 28,000 subscribers now. Let's see if we can go for 550 likes on today's video. And without further ado, let's get talking about the first player. Starting off with one of the more obvious choices of the videos, it's Luke Bolton. Now, he's played next to no football in a Wrexham shirt over the past 12 months, and it's no fault of his own. The fact that he was our third choice right back in League One, I think shows the quality that we do have down that right hand side. Of course, Barnett had that really good first half of the season. We brought Ryan Longman in from Hull City, and then that sort of just was it for Luke Bolton. He was never going to get back into the starting 11, but he's a good quality player, and like I said, it highlights the depth that we do have down that right hand side. So it's no fault of his own. He's a good player, but you look at him coming in, he came in with a lot of expectation. He was one of our big signings in the January transfer window of 2024, and we didn't really see what Luke Bolton was about at all. Like I said, Barney hit form in the second half of that League Two season, so it was always going to be tough for him to come into the lineup and really take the right wing back spot at the scruff of his neck, and he never really did that. I think he had like 7 or 8 starts, and we didn't see the qualities that Ryan Barnett brought to the Wrexham side. And we've seen for Salford City that he can produce good numbers going forward. I think in one season he got something like 16 goal contributions, so it's a shame we didn't really see him, become that starting right back due to the expectation and the hype that was around him when he first signed. But it's no fault of his own, and I think he will do a very good job for a League Two side, whether he leaves on loan or on a permanent. I think, he won't be short of moves elsewhere, whether it can be to a League One or a League Two side. And the next player, Will Boyle, another very obvious choice. Now, it's got a return, in my opinion, to Cheltenham Town written all over it for Will Boyle. Now, looking at Boyle's stats this season, he's only made 2 appearances in a Wrexham shirt, getting that goal away at Sheffield United in the Carabao Cup, but I think it was clear at the start of the season that he wasn't going to play a role in the squad at all, because I think it was clear at the start of the season, since that first game against Wycombe Wanderers where he wasn't included in the squad, I think it was evident Will Boyle was not going to be playing a role in the matchday squad this season, and had it not been for injury, I think he would have departed earlier in the January transfer window. You look at Will Boyle, his time at Wrexham, I think it will cause a lot of mixed opinions with Wrexham fans, because he had some good performances defensively, towards the back end of the League Two season, but ultimately he wasn't the most reliable of defenders. We saw the red card away at Newport County, the red card away at MK Dons in massive games in our season, and he's going out there and getting silly red cards. So I think that's probably one of the main reasons why Parky has very limited his game time this season for Wrexham, because you're looking at defenders who you want to be reliable, you want to put your trust in, and not to get sent off in the big games. So it is a shame, and I think even now it would just be totally impossible for him, even if he did have a good run of games, to come into the starting 11 and cement himself as a starter. And I think his Wrexham days are over, which is a shame, because he signed in the summer of 2023. We knew what he was about. We were thinking he was going to form that good partnership with Ben Tozer like he did at Cheltenham Town, but we saw some good glimpses, we saw some good goals from Will Boyle, but again, he wasn't really reliable, and he's now obviously at the PFA Players Board, so he's got an exciting future ahead of him off the pitch. Now, talking on Jacob Mendy, I think he will leave Wrexham in this summer. Now, Parky, of course, has spoken very highly on Mendy on a lot of different occasions. He seems to be a big fan of him, but I can't help but think Mendy, his game time next season in a Wrexham shirt, will be very, very limited, especially if we bring a new left wing back into the club, which I do think we will in the upcoming transfer window. You're looking at this season in League One, he only played 4 matches in the league, and we've gone up a league to the Championship, 1 league below the Premier League. I cannot see that number getting better for Jacob Mendy, which is a shame, because we've seen some really good glimpses. He's provided us with some really good moments in a Wrexham shirt, but we're going up the leagues. We can't really be holding on to players now for sentimental value, because it's serious. We're getting really serious now, and we can't, like I say, be keeping hold of these players like Bole and like some players we're going to be talking about just because they've done, you know, a lot for us in the lower leagues. We need to be ruthless, and we need to be getting the best players in as possible to be competitive in the Championship next season. And unfortunately, I don't think Mendy is going to stay purely because he won't get game time. And I think he's too good of a player to be not even in the matchday squad on most weeks. And I think he definitely does deserve another EFL move, because on his day, he's a really good player, good down that left-hand side, he's quick. He's got a good cross on him at times, and, you know, if you give him the ball outside of the box, he'll 9 times out of 10 put a really good shot on target. But like I said, unfortunately, he's not going to play much this season, and I think it is time for Jacob Mendy to move on. So talking now on possibly a slightly controversial one, George Evans. Now, I think, again, this will cause mixed opinions in the comments below, and I think it will be a shame if we do see George Evans leave, because there was so much hype. You know, he was that deadline day signing in September of 2023 from Millwall. There was a lot of hype around him. He was a big midfielder that we brought in, probably, you know, one of the biggest midfielders by name and by, you know, career-wise that we had brought into the club. And, you know, when he joined, there's been nothing but injuries for George Evans, and additions to the midfield as time goes on. When George Evans has been sidelined, has meant his game time in a Wrexham shirt has been very, very limited, and which again is a massive shame, because we know he is such a good player on the ball. You know, he's been at some of the highest points in English football, playing in the playoff final for Reading, but he's only started 22 league games for Wrexham out of a possible 92. And you look at him being 30 years old, quite injury prone. You know, he's not had a string of games for quite a while, 5 or 6, where he's not had an injury of some sort. So I don't think Parky will be taking the risk on this front to have a midfielder in that has proven that he's had quite a few injuries over time. And if he's going to include him in a 25-man squad, which you need your players to be fit majority of the time, I can't see him going for the risk of putting George Evans into the squad, which again, like I said, is a shame, because you're looking at George Evans as a midfielder who is 30 years old. He's played majority of his career in League One and the Championship. He's a good midfielder. You could really tell his quality on the ball, his passing range, and just his experience and knowledge of the game. But you're looking at injuries. It's a massive, massive shame, because there's so much potential for George Evans to be a starter in this Wrexham team, and I still do think if he had been fully fit for the whole of the League One season, even if like for half of it, I think he would have a good chance of getting into that midfield, because he's got a really good, you know, pass on him. Like I said, his knowledge of the game, he can run the midfield well, but injuries have just overruled his time at Wrexham and have been a massive killer in this sense. So I think George Evans will be let go this transfer window. I don't think he'll struggle to get a good move. He could probably, you know, still remain a League One player. There probably might even be a Championship team that will take him as that backup. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Would you like to see George Evans stay, despite, you know, only playing 22 league games for Wrexham out of a possible near 100? So like I said, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Moal is up next now, with a few strikers expected to join Wrexham in the transfer window. It's very obvious, and I think it's written on paper, that Moal will be loaned out, possibly to a League 2, League 1 team next season to get regular game time, because it's fair to say he is not going to get that at Wrexham next season. And with the price tag that we did sign Moal for, you know, just last summer, I think we were all expecting Moal to play a bigger part in the Wrexham squad. I think we were expecting to be sort of a regular in the starting 11, because like I said, he's 21 years old. He signed for a decent price tag from Championship side West Bromwich Albion, who their fans were slightly not reluctant to let him go, but were disappointed because he showed some good signs in their Carabao Cup game against Fleetwood Town. So I think going into the signing of Moal, we were all expecting him to be a good player for us, and again, it's no fault of his own that he's not had the game time that he probably deserves over his spell. Looking at his stats, he's only played 63 minutes of league football for Wrexham this season, which is very, very disappointed. And you're looking at him, who was primarily used as a cup player. He scored a couple of goals in the EFL trophy here and there, but at his age, he needs to be playing regular football, and for his own sake and for his future at Wrexham, he needs to be going to possibly a League 2 club where he's going to continue to develop as a footballer, like 45, 46 games a season if he doesn't get any injuries along the way. He's proved he can score goals at League 2 level, so it's about finding the right club to spend the season at, and like I said, hopefully bring the goal scoring seasons that he had at Walsall and Doncaster Rovers over to another team, and just continue to prove to Phil Parkinson why he can be, you know, the future striker to lead Wrexham forward in the future, because there's quality there. He just needs to continue developing. I think 63 minutes of league football, he'll be very disappointed about that, and I'm sure it'll be the main priority this summer to get him loaned out and to get him a good move elsewhere. Now, Ollie Palmer, I think the time has finally come after 3.5 years. It's a decision that I think everyone kind of expected. Of course, after the arrivals in the January transfer window of Sam Smith and Jay Rodriguez, he was completely left out of the squad for the final 18 games of the season. And with us going up to the Championship, like a lot of these players, we're taking that big step up from League One to the Championship. And with new strikers destined to join, I do think that it is nearly guaranteed that Ollie Palmer will leave the club. And if it is the end for Ollie Palmer, it's a massive shame how it did end, because he was that striker that played that first game for us against Wycombe and then was playing all the way through until that 3-2 defeat at home to Stevenage, where he was just completely axed out of the squad. And I think with the arrival of Jay Rodriguez and how Jay Rodriguez, you know, the impact that he did have from when he signed till the end of the season, it's a massive shame, because I think Ollie Palmer had, I'm going to say, a much bigger impact when he did play. I think Ollie Palmer did have a much bigger impact when he did play in the starting 11, but at the end of the day, we went up. I don't think Ollie Palmer's complaining. I don't think Jay Rodriguez is complaining, but it is a shame, because I think all that hard work that he did put in, yes, he didn't get the goals I think Parky wanted to get out of him. He did the dirty work up front, and I think it is a shame because he formed that good partnership with Marriott, and then it was sort of just up in the air when Marriott got injured. Different partnerships tried to be, you know, forced upon him to work with the different strikers that were brought into the starting 11. So I think it is a shame, because I really did like Ollie Palmer, and I think last season he was quite a good player for us. But again, Parky obviously sees different options possibly being utilised next season, and I think Ollie Palmer will be out the door, unfortunately. And talking on the final player of the video, Seb Revan. Now, I think Parky, like I said, will go out and sign another left wing back, which would push Revan down to our third choice, and I think a move on loan to a League One side would be very beneficial for both parties. And you look at his age, he's just 21, and if you're going to be a third choice left wing back in the Championship, you're going to be wanting to get that loan move elsewhere, which I think it is beneficial for both parties. If he can possibly get that League One move, you're looking at his stats as well. He only started 9 games in League One last season, registering 0 goal contributions. We saw glimpses of quality from Seb Revan, but ultimately he needs to be playing week in, week out to continue developing as a player. We saw a player in Seb Revan that was good going forward. I think his crossing at times wasn't the best, and I think it was hit and miss, you know, what you would get from Seb Revan going forward. But like I said, he's 21 years old. You can't dig into him too much. He's continuing to develop as a player as he gets older, so I think game time will be hard to find for him next season at Wrexham, but it won't be hard to find if he does go on loan elsewhere. It's about developing as a player and getting that really important game time in men's football. Seb Revan's done it before. He's been at Rotherham United. You know, he's got that senior football under his belt, but I don't think he's going to play much for us next season, so I think a loan move is definitely going to happen for Revan. So yeah, that is it for today's video. There probably is a couple of other names that I could have added to this list, but I don't want to ramble on too much. If any of them do leave, of course, there'll be videos on the channel. Let me know your thoughts. Do you agree with me in the comment section down below? Do you disagree with me? I'd love to hear your thoughts, and as always, make sure to like, subscribe, do all that good stuff, and I'll see you in another video. Take care, guys. Up the town and up the Championship Reds.